Welcome back to Race to Win, the sailing podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about good seamanship. If you spend enough time on the water racing, sailing, eventually you're going to find yourself in a situation where your skill and decisions are the difference between an emergency and just a good sea story. I sat down with Bill Woodruff of San Francisco, California, to talk about a situation he encountered in his Catalina 30.
So we were on the second day of our Vallejo race, and we were experiencing relatively heavy conditions for the San Francisco Bay. The wind was sustained in the 20 to 25 knot range, and we had gusts in the 25 to 30 knot range. And given the wind direction, we had a little bit more swell than what we normally see on the bay. The waves aren't particularly large, 2 or 3 feet, but they're steep.
You're looking at the course from the 116th Annual Great Vallejo Race, a weekend event on the San Francisco Bay. During the second day, an upwind crossing situation developed between our guest Bill's boat, named Huge, and another vessel.
So we're on starboard, the other boat's on port. They see us, and we believe they're attempting to take our stern. As the two boats approach each other, we realize they aren't going to make it. They aren't going to be able to take our stern. And we decide to crash tack. So at that point, we don't change anything with the sails. We just turn the wheel over and try and get the boat pointed in the same direction as the boat that was going to impact us. I believe that that maneuver was going to be successful, that we were going to avoid any substantial contact between the two boats, or if the two boats did hit, they would hit side by side. Not a type of collision that I would expect to create a lot of damage on either boat. After the crash tack, unfortunately, the other boat continued to try and turn down and take our stern. So we didn't end up hitting parallel to one another. We ended up hitting with their boat at about 45 degrees to the side of our boat, and the bow drove into the side about midships.
I asked Bill to explain what was happening on board when they realized that a collision was going to be imminent.
So at the time, I had been sitting on the high side of the boat, and I was trimming the main, right? And I'm trying to keep my weight out. There are only 4 people on the boat, and I'm keeping my head out of the boat doing tactics. Now we come to the point where the boat's going to hit us, and we know contact's inevitable. I'm on the low side of the boat, and I know I'm going to go into the water. So I turn toward the water, and I relax, and my surfing instincts say, take a deep breath of air because you're going in the water, and I did.
So you've seen they've had a pretty serious collision. They've had people in the water. This is definitely a situation that has the potential to become very tragic.
Right. So another member of my crew who was a little bit forward of me on the rail also went into the water. We went under. Fortunately, we weren't under for very long, and the boat rolled back up. So I shook the water off, and we had obviously a crisis on our hands. So I needed to get off the rail. And the first thing we did is move into our go-to positions. So go-to positions, they're the spots where everybody is at their strongest. I told Michael to issue a pan-pan on channel 16 because we knew we had taken very extensive damage. But at that moment, everybody on the crew was okay, and the boat was floating. We also called 911, and they alerted the Coast Guard and Vessel Assist. And then we set about surveying the damage. So they pulled everything heavy from the port side of the boat.
At this point in the story, a less intrepid crew might have just kept the boat afloat and waited for help. But the crew of Huge was determined to save the boat. What follows is an amazing example of seamanship with maybe just a dash of good luck.
So down below, they're pulling the cushions and the boards and everything out of the way to get a look at the hole in the boat. And we realize that the hole is extending quite a bit below the waterline. I'm on the deck, and I'm also looking over the side, and I can see well down into the anti-foul a big crease in the side of the boat. We realize that we have to stay on port tack. We can't do anything about it. And not only do we have to stay on port tack, but we have to keep the sails trimmed up and we have to keep the boat heeled over substantially. We assessed the severity of the damage, and we realized there was no way that the boat could sit level in the water because it would take on too much water and it would likely swamp. And if we had to go over on starboard tack, the boat was going to sink. So we're really very limited in our options. We're forced to stay on port and heeled over substantially. I stay on port tack and I start heading for the shore. And my thinking at this point is either we're going to find a marina to put the boat in, or I'm going to run the boat up on the mud. But I'm going to do something to prevent the boat from sinking out in the middle of the bay.
And of course, the main reason to save the boat is Bill is trying to protect his crew from the cold water of San Francisco Bay.
My thinking is that I'm going to put this boat up on the mud on its starboard side near the shore. So on port tack, we were maybe a mile or so from the shore. And as we're approaching the shore, we see a marina. And that's a little bit of luck. That's that was a little bit of luck in the situation. So we were able to stay on port tack and make a beeline for the marina. We have a lot of trouble starting our motor, which gives us, quite a scare. But eventually we're able to get the motor started. And the marina has a channel to get into it. And we realized that we're going to have to just make a beeline for the dock in the marina. And we get to the channel entrance. In a coordinated effort, we drop the sails. We motor in as fast as we possibly can, and now we're really taking on a lot of water down in the bilge.
If this video looks a little confusing, it's because the person holding the camera is actually hanging upside down, trying to get a look at what's happening with the water coming inside the boat.
We pull a quick U-turn and we tie up to the fuel dock, and then we quickly take all the halyards on the boat and we hook the halyards onto the dock, and we roll the boat over on its side again. And with the help of the manual pump and the automatic bilge, we kept the water out of the boat. At least it never got up to the level of the engine. So at that point, the situation's starting to stabilize. We're at the dock. We have the halyards holding the boat over on its side, so the hull is up out of the water. And at that point, the Coast Guard showed up. And vessel assist. But what happened then is we began to clean up the boat, and vessel assist put some sort of a putty, I'm not familiar with what it is, into the side of the boat. And they puttied up maybe about, 12 or 18 inches up from the water. And it is able to harden in the presence of water. And that stopped the worst of the leaking. And the boat was towed to the yard to be repaired the following day when the seas were calm.
My first question when I heard the end of the story was, is it going to be okay after all this work? Are you going to be able to repair the boat, or is it just a total write-off?
So the future of the boat, and this gets into your insurance question. Fortunately, we had an agreed value for the boat, which exceeded the value of the cost of the repairs. So the boat is going to be repaired, and it should be done in the next week or so. Crew was fine. One of the crew members was very shaken up. The other person that went into the water as I did, but everybody seems to be fine. So boat and crew are live to sail again.
Wikipedia defines seamanship as the art of operating a ship or a boat. So with that in mind, I'd like to thank Bell and his crew for sharing their seamanship masterpiece with us. And I know that I've certainly filed it away in my mental notes of, if this happens to me, this is how to do it right. And I hope you do too. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you next time. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can find more on our website, www.racehughes.com/podcast.